to politics. Those are babies, and it's a really sad day here. So our prayers and thoughts are with everybody. Makes me so sad. Let's see if Jackie. Hold on one sec. Let me.
Shit, I got to get out and back in. Hang on.
I need to have music, like elevator music, while we're waiting.
Okay, the stream is live.
Thank you. Is there a way to record this after? Nope.
No, once you started the stream, you can't add record. You have to set up the recording before you start the space.
I always forget to do that. Okay, Jackie's here.
Well, you're gonna have it.
I don't.
You're gonna have it on Twitch and YouTube, so there's that.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. So Jerry, who's typically my co-host, he is doing a space right now on the elections here in Texas. So I told him not to worry about coming in, that it'll be recorded, and not to worry about that. That Jackie and I have this. So welcome, Jackie. How are you?
Hey, good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. I was just saying it's been a rough day here in Texas. It's been kind of sad. Actually, it's been really sad. And I can't imagine as a parent, your worst nightmare. So lots of prayers for those families tonight.
Yes, 100%.
Which I think is important to mention that, there is a war on our kids. And that's kind of how Jackie and I met. She came into a space that we were having, and she messaged me and we started chatting. And I'm really glad we did, because we are kind of starting a, I don't want to say a pack, Jackie, but kind of. I mean, eventually it might be one, but it is a group of people all over Texas. And I am going to make this disclaimer. I'm not going to give away all the things that we're doing, because I know these are heavily monitored spaces. So we're just going to kind of get Texans to get involved, if you will. But we are basically starting a group statewide, and then we are breaking it up into like committees within the different areas and districts in Texas. And our hope is it is going to be very unified. It is going to be very active. I mean, we need people. And I'm excited because I think that the more that people understand what we're doing and why we're doing it, I think it's going to be easy for them to get involved. We're kind of setting people up for success, hopefully.
Yeah, I hope so too, because everybody's doing so many things across the state and across the country in different groups and all different movements. And I feel like, although that's amazing, we've got to somehow condense it and send the same message across the board, and it's like it's clearly, we all have the same intent on how we want to protect our kids from all the things that are happening. I mean, the war on our children is no joke.
Hey, Jackie, before
Yeah,
we go before we go on, can you just do me a favor and introduce yourself a little bit to those who don't
sure.
know who you are, and tell us who you are, where you're at, and just let us know about you and all the good things that you're doing.
Sure. Hi, I'm Jackie Abreu-Hill. I'm in Houston, Texas. I have a podcast called Probably Problematic. The title alone should tell you everything. We talk a lot about the schools, but also the stuff that's happening in this world right now. It's kind of chaotic, it seems. Um, but I've been involved in the school district here in Houston for about a year. I mean, I got fired up the minute that they started masking our children and fighting against it. And Houston was one of those districts in the state that wouldn't let up. I mean, even when the governor said, we're not going to mandate masks, our ISD was like, no, we're still going to do it. And not only did they do it, it was just really very, very pushy. So I made the decision to pull my child out and put him in private school. It's the best decision I ever made. But I haven't stopped fighting the school district just because they have now triggered me to the point where, if I can save my child, I only have one. But if I can help any other child out there or families that don't have the time to be doing this, not like I have the time, I'm going to be honest. I really don't have the time to be doing all this, but it brings me some sort of peace to be able to go and do this, although I will say it's very difficult to kind of put yourself out there and fight for these things that you believe in, because you get so much hate. People just hate on you for everything. They find anything that they can to go against you. It's just awful, but that doesn't stop me, though. It actually fuels me to keep going. um so yeah, we've been making progress in terms of, we didn't really, it was hard to fight the district on the masks. I mean, we tried everything. We did end up getting surety bonds against the boards, and I'm not sure if that's what triggered them to remove it or not. They didn't say. But Houston is one of the most corrupt districts in this entire state, you guys. And I always tell the other women that I've been working with, Summer and all the others that we're trying to um, connect together, is that if we can cut the head of the snake, being Houston, the largest district in Texas, the seventh largest in the country, we can do anything. So I'm not stopping. I'm going to keep fighting. Our new thing is the books. The books are the hardest thing right now because they're throwing all sorts of things in our face to try to get us and distract us from this. I don't know how many of you have been involved. I see a couple of you on here that I know personally, that I know have been fighting the book issue, the war on the whole LGBTQ agenda on our kids. Um, yeah, it just doesn't end, you guys. It's crazy, but we're fighting. We're doing our best, and we welcome all the help we can get. So, thank you, Summer, for
Yep.
having me. I'm just very happy to be here.
Me too. I'm super excited that we were able to connect and for us to talk about the visions that we have, because I was very fortunate, thanks to Jerry, to kind of get connected into a group of moms here in my area. And they have just fueled my fire to continue this and to go on further, and to just keep trying to not recruit, but to get more parents involved and to show them why it's so important. And I think that meeting you was such a God thing, and it happened at the perfect time. And I just, so people know, last week we had our first meeting, and we had a bunch of different parents from districts of all over Texas. In fact, met a mom who's right down the street from me in McKinney. So that was exciting when you see, you're like, oh wait, that's literally my neighbor. So it's so important that we try to get people who maybe just are kind of confused at where to start. How do you even find, parents that are like-minded? Because we have found that a lot of parents are afraid to speak up, rightfully so. Retaliation is a huge thing. We're seeing that all the time in what we're doing. And so I get it. But we cannot let that stop us. So I feel like, there's always power in numbers. And if we can get more people, then they're going to see that we're serious. So that's what we started. And we had our first meeting last Wednesday. And now we are forming committees. We have people that are taking different, roles. Eventually, I think, Jackie, we're probably going to have like a board and, different people that do different things, because we are going to have, to make this uniform. We wanted a website, and we basically want to start a grassroots movement that all parents can get involved in, and where pretty much the foundation has been laid, where you can literally go to your school and there will be everything right in front of you, so you are prepared, you know what to say, and the work has already been verified and done for you. So that's our goal, right, Jackie? Am I
Yes,
saying it
that
correctly?
yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is too is that we want to have a unified approach when we go to these school board meetings, so that it's kind of like a movement, so that when people go to these school board meetings, they start to realize like, hey, I just heard that same exact speech or that same exact topic in Houston as I did in Frisco or as I did in McKinney or wherever, right? So that it becomes like this, people are just kind of curious now, like, how is this growing? And like you said about the parents who are afraid, I can tell you right now, and like I said, as I was introducing myself, so many people are afraid because of the backlash you get. And I can't tell you how many people wish that I was dead. Like it's that serious when people are this crazy to come after you when you're doing such a positive change, a godlike movement, right? And you are crucified for this type of stuff. So I understand why people get nervous to get involved because you put yourself out there. I have a full-time job, and thankfully I work with some amazing people who know that I am not going to stop. And so I know not everyone has that, right? So but you have to come to a point where you're just kind of fearless. Like that is how we make change. Like if we go in this tiptoeing, we're going to get nowhere. This is why we're in the mess that we're in. Like, so many people just trusted everything far too much, and now we're starting to see this movement of mama bears just coming out with fists, like, swinging. And it's wild to see the moms coming out with such force because, we're protecting our kids. And honestly, I have one child, but I feel like I need to protect, like I said, I need to protect all these other kids in Houston who don't have parents that are brave enough to speak out. I have personal friends who are afraid to speak out. And at this point, I'm like, y'all, you have to choose a side here. Like, we are up against demonic forces at this point because it's absolutely crazy to watch what we're seeing. So I encourage anyone who's listening to get involved. You just have to take that first step. It's a crawl, walk, run. Oh my gosh, hold on. Let me say that again. Crawl, walk, run process. So, some people aren't ready to just jump right in and start screaming at the superintendent. I understand that. But maybe it's something where you can start an email, or maybe you want to protest a book. Maybe you need to just, meet with a couple PTA moms or dads and say, hey, look, you know what? I've noticed something um, that doesn't seem right in my school, but I'm not sure what to do. And I'd like to have more people involved. I mean, that's what we have to start doing, you guys. It's so important right now to kind of make those connections, and that's kind of what our group is hoping to do, is to try to invigorate people, because so many groups like um Moms for Liberty and Mama Bears Rising and We the Parents, and I think there's Make Schools Great Again or something. There's all these different groups that are so great, but we all just need to stay in line with what we want to push out to the masses, and I think that's a really important key to take back.
Hey, real quick, if everybody could share the space so we can get some more people in here listening and possibly participating, that would be great. Thank you.
Thanks, Randy. And I also want to say one thing that I personally have been working on is getting teachers to talk to me, to tell me things, to be honest about, why are they leaving the district? Why are they getting second jobs? Why are they wanting out? And I feel like what's unfortunate here in Texas is that they are binded by these contracts, and anything that they say can and will be used against them. And especially nowadays, like a lot of teachers are the primary breadwinners. They can't afford to lose their jobs. I mean, there's so many things. I get it. And so the way that their contracts are written, it is very hard for them to speak out about their administration. And I will tell you this. I have a lot of good friends who are teachers, and a lot of friends that I've met at my daughter's school now that are teachers, and they are not leaving for any other reason than the administrations. They are so tired of what they are trying to put on them. This SEL, just now it's all different kinds of things with testing, and they're already so thin with finances, and yet the school is not giving them money for their classrooms, for products, for Lysol wipes, and it's because of the people that are in charge that these good teachers are leaving. And so that's one thing that Jackie and I have talked about is we need to support our teachers, our good teachers, and do what we can as parents to keep them in those positions, because our kids need them and we need them, but they need us. So if you're a teacher and you're in this space, you can always reach out to us. Everything is confidential. We are just wanting to get your feedback and your information and know what we as parents and what we as a community can do to support you more, because that's very important to us.
Yeah, and what I mean, I'm sure you noticed this summer too, but the teachers unions are our enemy. So if there's teachers listening that might be part of a teachers union, maybe you can fill us in because I mean, today alone, I found some troubling tweets and Instagram posts from the American Federation of Teachers in Texas, AFT. And I mean, they don't hide it anymore, you guys. They don't hide their agenda. They basically say that they're in it to win everything over politically. It's such a political stance with them. They don't care about anything else other than they're getting all this money thrown at them from different, organizations in the government, and it's just a continual push. I mean, where do you think CRT is getting pushed from, or the LGBTQ stuff? I mean, the teachers unions are so much to blame for this. And I see them at every school board meeting. It's aggravating. And although I will say, in Houston, I follow this Twitter page called Houston Teachers United. They share some really interesting things. I believe there's a bunch of teachers behind that account, I would assume. Um, but there's over 800 or 900 vacancies in Houston right now for teacher positions. That's ridiculous, number one. Number two, what I find interesting is that a lot of them are part of the union, and a lot of them go to these meetings, right? We all have a lot of the same beliefs in a way. It's just in a political realm, we do not. So it's interesting how we have to try to navigate this space, because I don't necessarily disregard liberals' views completely. I am a former liberal.
Absolutely not. I'm so glad
And
you said that.
no, and because here's the thing, we can't unify and go against the people who want us, to be their slaves to the system if we don't come together and agree to disagree on certain topics, right? I mean, we're not going to all agree on the same things, but there are things that we should agree on, like kids shouldn't be taught certain things in school, and maybe we should just stick to academics. And like, I don't understand why we have such a divide when it comes to that. I think it's just this push that just keeps getting it just doesn't stop from the woke progressive side of things. And so not all liberals agree with that, though. You'll find that there's a lot of liberals who are not okay with the fact that their kids are learning, sex education at such an early age, or being pushed, things about LGBTQ at a very young age. They don't want their kids being exposed to that because they would rather be the parent who explains this to their children, right? And I think all of us can agree that that is something we all kind of want to be a part of, right? Our child's life and informing them on the world views, right? Whereas teachers shouldn't even have to even have that conversation with our kids. But again, the teachers unions are, getting pushed money by government organizations that want to fund this. Like, Summer, I saw you post something about George Soros earlier. I'm like, oh yeah, that guy is, you know, public enemy number one.
Yeah.
so, so things like that, this is why it's crazy how it's like a spider web of so many things, but it's all coming and funneling into our schools and into our kids. And that's what's driving me insane. And that's why I want to continue fighting this, because although my son is in private school, he's not completely immune to it either. Because don't be fooled, the private schools are also getting it too. So it's just not as obvious um, yet. And some private schools are actually not as woke as some others. So you just have to be involved and just pick your poison on which one you kind of want to what you find interest on fighting against, because you can't do it all. It's too
No.
much.
And I think that's where we are trying to make this a little different. Is I'll be very honest, and I've said this in practically every space I've been in. I am behind a great group of women who have tackled the whole book thing. So it's not that I'm not passionate about it, but I have a daughter who's in special education, and my two things are SEL and the budgets and finances. And so I'm going to be on those committees because that is what I personally have done a ton of research on, and I've been fighting that. And I know that the book situation in Frisco ISD is under the best of care. So I think what we need to do is see where there are areas. And I will tell you this is as a former Democrat and working on the Obama campaign. Don't hate me, but listen to me. I learned a lot about how they got into how, community wise, and everything was okay. We went by districts, and where was there a need? Even if you didn't know anything about it, they just put you were a placeholder and you learned it. And so I think it's important that we do that in this is, we find where there's a need and somebody gets involved in that. And then we go on to the next. And I think the uniform thing is the most important, is having a very clear stance on, why we are doing this. And when we go to those meetings and talk, we are saying the same thing. This is not okay. We are challenging the same major topics because I think that so many parents just aren't aware. And that leads me to the next point of, getting community involvement. How do we do that? What do we do? I think this is one of the best ways right now, as far as, being able to talk openly on a public forum. I am not on Facebook. I'm not active on Instagram unless it's, makeup and hair. But I'm very active here and I have a good following, and I only intend to grow that more just so we can continue to do this. So social media is big, getting into our neighborhoods, making our neighbors know that, we are aware of what's going on. I just volunteered to be on the PTA. So there's that. And you can send wine donations at any time for the next year. But I think it's important because it's giving me access to the school that they are not giving parents access to anymore. And that was the one thing. I mean, I will have to be on that campus. And in fact, I was assigned to go. I will be the person that goes to the meetings, like the PTA statewide meetings and county meetings or district meetings, and I will have to come back and report. I want to know everything. I want to know everything those, members are talking, board members are talking about. So trust me, I'm going to be in everything. And with that, per se, but I just think that there's a lot of different ways that we can be getting involved. And I think it's important that we start getting people who, you know, may not necessarily be completely awake to what's happening.
Yeah, I also noticed in Houston, and I encourage you to go look at your school district's website job postings. They need librarians, you guys, and we could use some conservative librarians in those libraries these days, and just to be able to monitor what's being put in there and who's choosing these books, because I only know of one that's in our new group. She is she's a librarian. I don't even know which area in Texas, but I don't think she's in Houston. Either way, it's interesting that I see so many postings for librarians. And I know this because there are so many schools that don't have libraries, which blows my mind. Like, of course our kids need to read, and of course they need access to really great books, but there's some books that our kids don't need access to. And like, you know, I agree though, Summer, like it's not just the books that are problems. You're right, the curriculum, SEL, CRT, um, the budget, I know from experience in Houston, are they don't know how to manage money here. There is money that just comes up out of nowhere, and it makes headline news all over the place that they just found like $70 million laying around, and it's like, wait, what? How did that even happen? So
Yep.
the more people are starting to realize, and I'm starting to see, at least more parents and more liberal parents are really starting to question things. Um, which again, we need to find common ground here and try to make friends with these people as best as we can, because at the end of the day,
Yep.
it's
We
it's this is a battle that is going to be going on forever if we fight each other instead of fighting the people that are, making up these stupid rules and losing money and whatever it is, you know what I
Well,
mean?
and you
So,
know what, Jackie? They want us to be divided, especially right now. They
yep,
conquer, and I think it's very important to remember that if we are divided, they win. And I don't care who you vote for. Like, I mean, I do, but when it comes to our kids, I just care about their future and the education that, at least here in Texas, and Jay and I know in our district alone, the amount of money, our taxes, um, go to the schools. We have every right to be involved. But the thing is they expect us, and they really want us not to be involved. And we are seeing that they are getting pissed off that, and they even have said it. I mean, it's been in our local papers. They are so mad that there's all of a sudden this uprising of parents, but they shot themselves in the foot in 2020 when they forced moms and dads, but pretty much moms, to be teachers and to see everything that was and was not happening. And that woke up a majority of us. So this is on them. You know what? They shouldn't have done what they did, but I'm very thankful they did, because I do believe that, it needed to be seen. There have been a lot of things that have been going on in the dark, if you will, that are coming to light. Um, what they're doing with our libraries, the books. But I will tell you this, devices, that's another thing that a lot of people don't talk about, is that, our kids are now learning on computers. How do we know, like, what's really on those computers? Because I will tell you this, those computers don't come home. They stay at school. They have protected passwords, protected. I mean, obviously, I know what their login is, whatever, but that has changed. And it is very easy for them to have things, if you will, put in front of our children that we will never know about. And I feel like there needs to be accountability with that. Somebody needs to be saying, okay, every parent should know, should be able to log on at any point in time until that child is 18, because I guarantee you that's how, well, I do know that's how a lot of these books got through under the radar. So, yeah, it's a hot mess. Or as Mary Beth earlier said, or no, not Mary Beth, somebody else. No, tonight it's a cold mess and it's disgusting here, but we have a lot of work ahead of us. And I think that if we can get all of you, whether you have kids or not, on our side, and to support us, and to bring other parents in and just say, look, there's this group that I know of moms. They're nation or not nationwide yet, but we're statewide. And, hopefully we can get more people. Go ahead, Jackie.
Oh yeah, no, I was just gonna say the devil is overplaying his cards because things are getting sloppy now, if you've noticed. I've noticed that, just alone with 2020, when, like you said, having us have the ability, although it was a pain in the butt to teach our children during that time, I got to see the virtual classroom and actually hear and see everything that they were doing. That was the first time I was ever exposed to that, right? And now you just see such a push to keep parents out of the schools, right? So if it's not in the name of COVID, now it's going to be monkeypox, or now it's going to be, you know, gun safety, or whatever it is, you guys. Like, they're going to come up with every single thing possible to try to keep us out. And we cannot allow that, because although what we saw today is tragic, I hate to say this, but I'm going to say it. I also believe that some of this is a distraction for other things that are going on. I do believe that there is an issue that happened today, and it's unfortunate what we're watching unfold, but unfortunately our government doesn't care.
Nope.
And but there's like a district like mine who wants to defund our ISD police, which makes zero sense.
Yeah.
We just 2 weeks ago we had a high school shooting, and not only did our superintendent not mention anything to the entire district about it, he went and talked about this one today. So I was floored when I saw his message go out to the entire district about today's shooting, which, is a very bad thing. But when it happens in your own city that has elementary schools very close to that high school, yet there was nothing said by him, it makes me sit here and wonder who's telling him to say this, because
Yep.
he couldn't even say it for his own city. And that makes me mad. But anyway, I'll get off my soapbox on that. I was just a little annoyed today when I saw that.
Well, and here's another thing that I am having a really hard time with. My daughter's school is literally like Fort Knox. I cannot get in there without an ID. They all know me. Literally, I am friends with the front office staff. They're over here all the time. But I cannot get into that door without my ID on the camera first. And then once I get into the door, I can only go into the office, where I then have to sign in on a computer and have a little thing printed out to me that is a sticker that says exactly who I am. And then I can walk back out and wait for it's like going to prison. And I can honestly say I have been to a prison before, and I know, only because, as you guys know, I should be careful here. My dad. But anyways, long story short, I know exactly what it's like to go to a jail, and it's literally like going to a jail. You have to wait at the doors for the person behind the camera to open it, and then you are monitored everywhere you go in that school. How is somebody allowed to get in there and do what was done and what has been being done? Because there is no way that I could get into that school without people knowing who I was. So, and at least having my ID. So there's a lot of issues that, I know that I personally am going to bring to the board meeting come August. And I want to know my children are protected. You're so worried about kids and their pronouns and what bathrooms they can use. I am worried about somebody shooting up what is now, Randy just told me, 21 children in a Texas school. How did he get there? And so
Right.
there's so many questions that we all need to be asking, and they better have answers, because I just have a feeling it's going to be another way for them to implement their ideology of anti-gun in the schools now.
Well,
Now,
and it's obvious it's against Texas for so many reasons. I mean, again, I'm not going to go conspiracy on all of y'all, but it just seems kind of fishy. Something doesn't add up with all this.
well, you're in a good space for conspiracy, my dear. The best of us are in here right now. Anyways, okay, so I'm going to go back to kind of stick with what we've been talking about, and then if anybody has some questions, Again, if you're not in Texas, that is fine because we want you to do this wherever you are. What we are planning next, we are going to be doing monthly meetings, and hopefully we're with this summer, we're kind of, and this is brand new, literally, we just started this, but um, I think what is important is that we get parent feedback too. If you can't go to meetings, and I heard somebody earlier talking about this, and I think it's very important that there is a politician that on his website he had people weighing in, or maybe it was like his social media, but he was asking people, what are your concerns? How do you feel about this? If you could do something or couldn't do something. And I think that's super important because we are just the mouthpiece for thousands upon thousands of parents. We're just the ones that are willing to do this and say the hell with it. But it is so important that every parent that is concerned be able to let us know what they're concerned about. And I think that's another thing, the district, they used to do, and I don't know about yours, Jackie, but at least a couple years ago, when I first moved here, every year we would get a survey, like a parent survey. We no longer get those. And I find that very interesting. And a lot of the teachers that I've talked to, they get their annual teacher survey at the end of the year. But what sucks is they're afraid to say anything because the ones that did, they were all put in, they all had to do, the ones that spoke out about the current administration at our school, at least, they were stuck with virtual learning. Literally at the last minute, her whole entire classroom was ready to go. And she got a call, and I will never forget. I was in California, and she called me bawling her head off. And it was Friday, and school started on Monday. And she said, "You are never going to believe this. They put me in virtual." And this was just this last year. So they retaliate against you. And so we need to make sure that teachers know that, their input is valued by us and, by hopefully the board. And I think that's the only way that change is going to come. So we need like a survey, like a parent survey. Like, what are your main concerns right now?
I love that idea, and I also want to encourage. I know that our district has elections coming up in 2023 again. We had them last year. We got two conservatives on our board, which is pretty big for a very liberal city. Um, we were hoping to have five, but you're not going to believe this. We had, as they were counting the votes last November, actually, you will believe this if you're a group of conspiracy theorists with me. They lost power when they were counting some of the ballots for a certain district that was a crucial district for us to take. So I find that interesting. However, so 2023, we have some districts up, and I guarantee you, wherever you live, you probably have school board elections coming up too. Now, whether you have interest in doing that, or maybe you know somebody who would be really great at it, we've got to get our people out there. You don't even have to be someone who is super involved in understanding everything. I mean, here's the thing. I knew a couple people who ran who were just concerned parents, and they were like, I've had enough. And they honestly got very far throughout the process. People loved them because they weren't political, they weren't tied to some nonsense, and that's kind of what America wants right now. America wants people who just want to make change, who are just hungry to just change things for the good, right? So I encourage you, all of you, to find out if you know anybody who's running that maybe you can help them with their campaign. Maybe you offer to do block walking or whatever it is. Okay. There's so many things, endless opportunities. You don't have to waste your entire life doing all of this. But I think this is so important right now to try to really flip that from the school board perspective. We have a neighboring city to us in Houston who just flipped their entire board. They spent an entire year um, campaigning for people. They made it on Fox News and everything because they have this group called Pipeline. I can't remember the acronym that they used, but anyway, this group took all these parents in this one, and it's a small little area next to Houston, um, and they flipped their entire board conservative. They're the majority, not the entire board. There's like a couple Democrats left on the board, but they have changed the entire dynamic now for it to be majority, which is huge when it comes to voting for anything. So yeah, it's such a big thing, but I do love the idea of having a parent survey, a teacher survey, somehow getting out to people that are just too afraid to even, put their faces out there. Even in this group that Summer and I are working with these other people, some of these people, like I said, there's a woman on there who's a librarian. Of course, she wants to be kind of quiet about it, but she's also able to help us because she's in the school. So, there are so many positives that can come out of this. We're very infant stage right now. We're just still trying to get people to join us and to try to help us. Um, because I really do believe that this could be game changing for the state of Texas. And maybe if it's something that grows to something amazing, it'll be a nationwide type of thing. Who knows
Well,
what will happen?
it will. I truly believe that because I'm telling you, being from California and I'm still very connected, I have a couple of very good friends. One, I highly recommend everybody follow this account. Um, hold on, I want to say her real name, but it has nothing to do with it. Give me 2 seconds. Anyways, she was actually my makeup artist for my wedding. She is amazing. Her name is Brittany. She is on fire. She has completely taken over San Diego County. I am so proud to know her and call her a friend. But I highly recommend that you follow Rooted Wings. She also has a podcast that's on Spotify and on iTunes, and she is just a force to be reckoned with. And she's freaking gorgeous, so that helps. But she is amazing and she is doing great things in California. And I'll be honest, she was one of my inspirations. I started listening, like, getting stuff from, her. And I'm like, what is going on? And then I'm like, wait a second, this is exactly what's happening in Texas. So I think that it is happening all over. I know parents in Idaho, actually, one of my cousins, and they're going through some things there. And they started their own little thing. So, you know, it's almost that if you build it, they will come. And I think that what we are really trying to do, though, in Texas is unify so that everything is consistent. And, we are it's not really a political thing. At least it isn't for me. This is a child thing. This is just this to me shouldn't be about politics. I'll be honest. And, I get that this is very political to a lot of people, but for me, this is personal. This is what I am seeing. And I'll tell you this for those that don't know, I have two sets of twins. My older girls are 23. They started kindergarten in 2004. So I have been, and I haven't had a break because when Ash and Bree went to college, Reese and Haley started kindergarten. Didn't plan that one very well. But I will tell you this, what I have seen over the last 18 years, yeah, it'll be my 18th year. It's a completely different system. So that just goes to show me that it's only going to progress that way if the mom that I was back then is the same, which was just nothing. I wasn't involved. I was too busy. I was a single mom. I didn't have time, but I did have time. I just chose not to make the time for that. And I think now it's critical that we make the time. And even if it's just doing some research or, getting announcements out, or if you're really good at writing something, helping us with a blog or whatever it is. So there's always ways that we can use you and your talents that God gave you to make life better for these kids. And that goes for all kids. And I'm never going to, alienate those children that are LGBTQ. And I want to say that very, very loudly. That is not my place. I have a daughter with special needs, and I know how difficult it can be. But I will tell you this, I am never, ever, ever going to undermine another person or another parent's authority and responsibility with how they raise their child. So I don't think it is the school or the government or the states position to, tell our children what they should and shouldn't do with their body. I mean, that's just absolutely insane. And when I say that, the things they're trying to push on our children are graphic and disgusting, I mean that with everything I am. And so I think it's just very important that, those that are aware stand unapologetically for those things. Um, Gabby, I'm being careful with who I bring up, not because of anything, but just time. So Alpha and a couple of you, I'm going to wait for a little bit to bring you up. But Gabby, I do want you to come up because you have been fighting some of this and you can give us some information on your end. Hi, Gabs. I called you Gabby. I hope you don't mind. So introduce yourself to Jackie just briefly, and just kind of let her know who you are, what you're fighting, and then we can get into some conversation about it.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, I prefer Gabs if that's okay. But
Sorry about that.
no problem. No problem. I just feel like a 12-year-old when you call me Gabby, and my mouth doesn't match that, right? So, um, my name is Gabrielle Clark, and I filed the first federal lawsuit against CRT indoctrination in America. Um, and during the time in which I was fighting for my son, my daughter was socially transitioned into thinking she was a boy at school. So I fight indoctrination in all its forms in the K through 12 setting. And we were in Las Vegas, but we had to flee Las Vegas and come back to my hometown of Houston, Texas. And since I've been here, I'm seeing what was happening in Nevada 2 years ago. So what was going on in Nevada, it's going to happen here. At my daughter's school, as of right now, half of the children, half are labeling themselves as LGBTQ. This is a public school in Houston, one of the better ones, actually. And so, what I'm and not only that, but like I said, I mean, I said this in a space earlier today, but I spoke with one of my cousins who her kids go to a $30,000 a year private school, and a private Christian school. And the counselor, one of the old counselors, she just found out that the woman has two trans children, two, a boy and a girl. So both of her children are transitioned. Now, you know, a lot of people tell me, oh, well, that's not happening, all that stuff. There's just too much. There's too much out there. You look at Libs of TikTok, and every single day she has got some of this nonsense on there. And we're talking about transitioning right now, but it's not just transitioning. It's the entire gender theory. And not only that, there's also the CRT aspect that has kind of fallen by the wayside, but it is still present. And it's having this circular effect of, the SEL allowed for CRT, and the CRT is now allowing for transitioning. So, every single day I fight this. I just got back from New York City yesterday from a protest in which there were people around us laughing and yelling and heckling one of the other women, Jay Thomas. It's all on video. You can see it. I'm going to be in a podcast tomorrow as well, with a psychologist who talks about disembodiment. And, for anybody who has been involved in any of this, you will know that this is a nonpartisan issue. This is not a political issue, because there are people that are, hardcore liberals. I mean, almost to the point of progressivism, actually, almost to the point of progressive. I've been with feminists all weekend. And let me tell you, they still talk about the patriarchy. There is not an eye roll big enough. There is not an eye roll deep enough that can express how badly I want to just, you know what I mean? When they start talking about the patriarchy. But if that gives you any indication of how vast this pushback is against this gender ideology, it's spanning every aspect of this whole of the whole spectrum of politics and
It
any
is.
other group.
Well,
Yes.
you're right. And I'll tell you this. I think that they, I, they rush things. They go so fast with things. And this one, they just went too fast, too big. And I'll be honest, coming from California, I would have expected that there. And, naturally so. I was shocked in Texas over the last 2 years, shocked, actually 3 years, but, um, it was eye-opening to me, and I think that that was one of the things that I realized is that, people just expect that if you live in a state that naturally leans a certain way, then everything is that way, and I think we need to throw that out the door. Those days are long gone. We now are run by a bunch of criminals on most sides of the aisle, because there are still some good people that are running and wanting to do good for us and our children. But for the majority, people are bought, and they in Texas, it is absolutely no different. I still think that there is a lot of voter fraud in Texas. I think there is a lot of bullshit in Texas. And I think that it is okay to say that and to be like, it is what it is. We need to do something about it. But to expect it just because your state is quote unquote red, that everything is, well, you're an idiot. It's not. I mean, that's like saying that, that there are parts of California that, you know, that don't disagree with what's happening over there. Yes, there are. It's just, unfortunately, we are being run by the same group of people with different ways of approaching it. And that's the difference, is that, you just have the Republicans that approach it a little differently than your Democrats. Then you have the liberals that I don't even want to get on, because I just feel like they're on a totally different planet. But they're good Democrats. They're moderate. They're good people. I would like to think I was one of them. I may have been more left leaning at one point, but that ended very quickly once, like, I realized that I needed my money. But I think it's just important that we let them know that we're all in this together, and it is okay that, we go about things differently, that maybe we use different terminology, but at the end of the day, we want the same thing for our children, for each other, quite frankly. And I think that is the most important thing, is getting this unity and letting each other know that, okay, let's drop the R, let's drop the D, let's drop all the things at the door. Let's focus on our kids, and how are we going to get these criminals who are stealing our money out of office? Because they don't give two shits about our kids. Let's be honest.
Can I tell you a couple of things that I have seen that have worked around the country as far
Absolutely.
as far okay, for one thing, the school boards, there have been people to recapture their school boards. One of the fundamental reasons is because they go through school board training. And that is something that is offered for free, with no real commitment to anything, through No Left Turn in Education, and I think a couple of other ones, but I know that one for sure. You do have a the No Left Turn in Education. Their president is in Dallas, for Texas, and her name is Lisa Cummins. She's on Twitter. You can find her on Twitter, and she also has a Facebook page. a No Left Turn in Education Texas Facebook page. They offer trainings on how to campaign and how to, run, not necessarily run, not run, but after you've run, what is expected of you as a school board member. So that has proven very, very effective. And they also teach you how to recall, if that's something that, I don't even know if that's something you can do here in Texas, but they teach you how to recall. They teach you how to pick your superintendents so that you're not picking more of the same, all of that stuff. And the other thing, and I've said this in spaces before, but the other thing is, a lot of conservatives don't like to, they don't like to do anything that costs money. But I gotta tell y'all, seriously, there's so much money in this stuff. And I really have, what I've seen is, I've seen so many school board, so many candidates quit, or just decide not to even really start, because the cost, the financial aspect is just so much that it's not something that they can handle. So
Hey, Gabs.
Yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I am. So that's
Yeah.
another thing that I personally, and I don't know if I've talked to you about this, Jackie, but it's something I really think is important, is doing like a boot camp. So I know here in our district next year, I think, what is it, Jay? I think we have two more seats coming up. And I feel like it is super important that we hold like a boot camp for those parents that are wanting to run for the board but have no idea. Like, where do you go? How do you fundraise? Where do you even begin? Because I think that's the number one reason why people don't do it. So I am recruiting I'm talking to a couple people, former board members, not current, but former board members, who are willing to host this event. And it'll probably be online, because we want it to be all over Texas, not just, in our area. But I think it's important that we do that and we give them the tools to succeed, because we need them. And, anybody, I don't care. Genuinely, I don't care if you're a Democrat. I just care that you are not okay with indoctrination of our children. So that is something that I know I personally have been working on, and I need to get with you, Jackie, about that so we can get more people involved. Because I think even as much as running for, or not running, but being on the PTA, like, what does it really entail? How can you be successful? What's the commitment look like? Because I think that's another thing people don't know. Like, oh wait, I work full time. Sorry, one of my oldest daughters just got home. She's moving back to California. You don't hear that often, moving from Texas to California, but she gets to finish college for free. So she's moving back, and she came home for a couple days before she leaves. Anyways, but I think it's important that people know what the commitment entails. What are you really, and I think that's really with anything, if you're a precinct chair, or, you're just running for something small, but it still is a commitment. So we're going to do that probably before, I think they have to turn in their applications. What, Jackie, isn't it like December?
Something like that. But you know what else I want to mention? First of all, Gabs, I think I messaged you not long ago, and we definitely have to connect because you're in Houston. Oh man, you've got to meet the group of moms that I have friends with. You would love them. So we also found, and I don't know if this is in anyone else's districts, but there's also this thing called a community. I can't remember the exact terminology of it, but it's a community group basically that the schools. So just in my vicinity, there's 3 schools, 2 elementary and 1 middle school, and they have to have these committees to integrate with parents, community members. So you don't even have to have a child at that school. It could be a neighbor who just wants to be on this committee to make decisions for the school. So could you imagine if more people started getting involved in those, just to be, understanding what's being brought into the school, maybe the budgeting, being part of the PTAs is huge. I actually talked to our mom group earlier today in Houston, and I said, look, we've got to start asking the questions of the PTAs, if we get them involved, because, you know, in the neighborhood that I live in, some of these PTAs are ridiculous in terms of what they can fund for these schools. It's actually really sad to me because there's schools that can't get that at all, right? So you're dealing with very different dynamics in this city. You either get heavily funded or you get nothing. And you have to pay attention to both of those areas because they're both getting the shaft somewhere, right? So, if people are more involved in the PTAs, and I know a lot of people don't like getting involved in this stuff, like Summer said, send her wine. um, those have a lot of influence on these principals, these teachers, and I see these lavish events these people put on, and I sit here and wonder, okay, if they can do this, then why aren't we infiltrating? No, I don't mean infiltrating in a bad way, but why aren't we getting in there and making buddies with the people who are on this to try to express to them we're all fighting for our kids. That's
Yep.
number one. And then trying to find our ways to kind of get involved because I think that's the biggest issue right now. I will be the first to admit I wanted nothing to do with PTAs. I wanted nothing to do with any of that stuff because I was just like, I'm so busy, I don't have the time. And it's just and now I
But
have
it gives you access. And that's what I
correct.
realized. I have been putting this off, and it was the kids' end of the year, I don't even know, field day thing, whatever. And the PTA president introduced herself to me, and I went, okay, here we go. And so she literally took my phone and put her number in. So I can tell they're definitely desperate for people to help. But she, right then and there, basically, if there was a contract that, needed to be signed at that moment, she would have made me sign it. But I forced myself to do this because I finally realized, yes, this is what I need. I need access into the school. I need to be in front of these teachers and these admin for them to see that, listen, I'm going to break every stereotype that you have because they already love me. They already know me. Like I said, I've made a presence there, but I think it's important. And I know that a lot of parents are pissed off, rightfully so. But I also think it's important to show them that I'm still the fun mom. Like, I'm still gonna, invite you to over for a pool party or whatever. I'm still gonna do your makeup. Like, I am not what you expect as a diehard, you know, where I am politically, if you will. And I want that out the door. I want them to see me active, engaged, and showing my true self to them in a good way. But it also gives me access to the fact that I can see, where is this money being spent? Because I'll tell you this was another thing that kind of triggered me. We just spent $58,000 on a sound system for the cafeteria. $58,000. And all I kept thinking about was, what could that money be used for? There was already a sound system because they were literally using the sound system to tell us that they bought a new sound system. And we all heard them and it was perfectly fine. So they're wasting money. And like you said, Jackie, you hit it, you brought it home. There are school districts that would give anything for $58,000, but I will tell you this, the same district that spent 58 grand on a sound system, those teachers were sending emails asking for Lysol wipes for their classrooms so they didn't have to buy them themselves. And that was a red freaking flag. And I went, And I had somebody in DC on the phone with me that afternoon because I was livid. And I have lit this board up. I have lit this district up. They hate me, and I am okay with that. But that's why I think it's super important that we tackle budgets and where is the money being spent? Why aren't our teachers given the resources or the simple things like Lysol wipes when we're still in a freaking pandemic? So they say, like, really? So there's so many ways that being on the PTA, now I see, are beneficial to being the change. So if you're a mom and you're like me, you own a business or you work from home or you have a couple hours, I will tell you this. I didn't ask the commitment because I don't care at this point. All they said was the meetings I have to go to are once a month. They're an hour. to an hour and a half. I have to take all the notes, and then I will report back to our PTA board what was spoken at the district's PTA meeting. I was like, perfect. That's great. I'm ready. I am got my little pad and I am like, woohoo, I will be there ready to go. But I think that's what it's going to take. And I think we should get excited about it, and we should look at it as, you know what? This is what we have to do, but in a good way. And we're going to get the 411. We are going to get the info from these teachers, from this administration. We're going to see those that we know are doing shady stuff, and we will actually be able to go to those meetings. And then for what Jackie and I, or what, we're doing here, we will be able to inform other parents. Like, this is what you need to ask. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to see in the budget. And it's uniform. And we're going to have a resource for all these parents that are wanting to do this. And I think it's going to be amazing. I get super excited talking about it because I genuinely think that, you just had to piss off the moms, right, Jackie? Right, Gab? Like, just piss us off, and then we unite.
Yeah, I mean, they couldn't have picked a worse group to deal with. I mean, honestly, we are a force to be reckoned with. I can tell you that every mom that I've met in Houston that is all over this, I can tell you 3 people in my group, we've all pulled our kid out of the public school system, whether it's homeschool or private, yet we show up to every board meeting still because we're tired of this. And like I said, okay, so depending on where you live, me being in a big city like Gabs in Houston, something that bothers me the most is watching these districts that have 0 money, okay? And then it bothers me so much. These kids don't even have libraries, and yet there's fights breaking out there all the time. These kids can't even get their grass cut at their school to go play outside. There's kids getting stabbed, shot. I mean, it's like, what is happening? And some parents
Yet
just
my
can't
school
get
is worried about a $58,000 sound system.
right.
Tell me how
But
this
there's
is not
schools
okay,
like that.
or how this
No,
is
it's
okay.
not. It's not, because down the street from those schools that a kid's getting stabbed at will be a school that's raising 6 figures at a PTA fundraiser.
Yeah.
And yet nothing makes sense, right? And it's like, how is this happening? You're going to see that in bigger areas like where we live in Houston, but I mean, I'm sure it's happening in the suburbs too. The suburbs are not, they're not safe either. I'm telling you, this corruption is everywhere. We all have to get our hands in this. We have to stick up for those communities who really can't serve them either. There's a lot of parents too who just don't care, and we have to remember to keep that in perspective. I was on my podcast last night, and we brought a teacher on, and she works at a school that's kind of in a rough area, and she says every time I try to contact the parents, they don't want anything to do with me. And so we're up against we're up against people like us who are fighting for every fiber in our being to save our children and other children, and then you've got other parents who don't care, right? So we can't focus on them because there's nothing we can do about them, to be honest. Well, we can fight for their kids even though they don't know it, right? And at some point the
Amen.
tides, yes, the tides will change. At some point they'll start to see it. And I've noticed that with a lot of families that start to see us at the school board meetings are like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that this was in the school, or I didn't know that this was happening. How can we find out more information? And these are parents, we got called out by one of our board members saying we're not diverse enough for the group. And we were like, are you kidding me, lady? Like, how dare you even say that? That's not fair. We're sticking up for every child here. And how dare you sit here and call us out in a public forum, basically saying, you white moms are not sticking up for anyone else. And that's such a lie, and this is what perpetuates this division, right? They want us divided, and I hate
Yep.
it.
Where is this at?
Oh, this is the school board meeting.
When is it?
So the next one would be the second Thursday of June. I think it's June 8th, maybe something like that. You have to come. It's a nightmare.
Okay. Yeah, I told you, I think we did, DM, and I gave you my email or whatever, but, send me something so I can know when it is. Cause like I just moved back here and really, my child is probably not going to go to a public school next year because she's probably going to Japan. So, but you know, one of the okay, so the other thing that I think will help with the people who just don't care is when they hear me talk about what happened to my daughter and what happened to my son, and talk about the porn in schools, and talk about talk about the rapes, and from the transgender boy in Virginia, and talk about how there are men getting arrested for child molestation and the rape of a child, and then they're claiming to be trans so that they can go into the women's prison. That stuff is when they hear me talk about those kinds of things, they start changing their fucking mind, right? So, and I go to speak, I go anywhere to speak. I'll go anywhere and talk to anybody to speak. But the other thing that you have to think about too is that there are people who want this. So, you can't afford to, not think about the people who don't care. Out of the people who don't care, we need the ones who we can convince to care. Because
Well,
there
and
are people
another
out there
thing,
who are fighting against us.
and here's another thing. We definitely need to have more dads that are willing to at least come to the board meetings, make their presence known. These are your kids too. And I get it. Like, we've had the chat in our house with, it's just, you work all day. I mean, I do too, but it's a little different. I get it. This is my passion, not necessarily his, but I think that if your presence is known, you're intimidating. We're intimidating, but you're intimidating too. But it's also showing that we're united, that this isn't just like a mom thing. This is a parent thing. This is a community thing. And that's why I love Matt Walsh so much. He went to a school board meeting. He cracks me up. He went to a school board meeting, and the first thing he said is, I am not a parent in this district or in this school, but I pay taxes here, so I have a right to say something. And he's right, he does. And so, if it's your parents, we have a woman in our group. She's incredible. Her name's Allison, and she spoke a couple times on here, but she had her dad, who was a former Frisco or McKinney. He did city council. He did something. Anyways, he spoke a couple weeks ago at a school board meeting, and it was so heartbreaking. Like, he even said to see everything that he helped create, and to all of you bots and trolls trying to get a mic, you're not going to get one because we're not giving out mics tonight. So just lay off it. Like, you're done. But I think it's important. You know what? Your parents matter too. Like, they help build this, and we need to hear from them. So again, your voice, no matter how big or not as big as you may think, is still big, and we need to hear from they need to hear from you, because here's what's going to happen is if we start going to these meetings, and it's an overwhelming amount of parents that are not necessarily on either side of the aisle. We're all sitting together. They're not going to know what to do. They're not going to know. They are going to, because they are expecting it to just be these white supremacists, you're whatever. I'm sorry. You can label me whatever you want because of the color of my skin. But if you know me and you know my family and everything I fought for up until, I voted for Trump, you would never say that about me. So I'm totally okay with that. But I think that it's just important that there be a united front, and we all have a message. Like, and it literally, it's a united message. And I think that's what's going to scare these boards, and more importantly, the administration, and also these people that are running for office that are using parents. Jay, you know who I'm talking about. That are using what's going on in our schools to get political gain. And I think that's also something that needs to be called out too, Jared Patterson. So yeah, we need to be careful about, who people are endorsing, who people are trying to get behind, how they're using us. and what's happening in our schools, and we call them out by name and we hold them to the fire, because these are the people that are supposed to be representing us. So again, it has to be united. But it's 10:10. Jackie, I don't know your schedule. I see a lot of, my friends in here, so we do this all night. But is there anything that you want to close with? Any last words? And then I know we're trying to get things set up with a website or a blog or like an email thing, but in the meantime, how can people get involved?
Well, I don't know if anyone's on Instagram. I have an account on there called HTX Kids First. I just expose stuff in Houston or surrounding areas. That's kind of my mojo on there. So if you want to connect with me on there, I check that more than I do Twitter, I'll be honest. Twitter, I just have a lot of haters on here because I just don't care anymore. So, like at this point in my life, I'm done caring. I'm a very pleasant person, but I'm just not catering to the mob anymore. So yeah, if you want to connect with me on there, HTX Kids First, and follow along. I am looking for more people to join our group. Um, I will say we are selective in terms of in certain ways because we don't want to be infiltrated. So if there are bots listening, really don't care what you think, but there are people who would love to infiltrate a group like ours and just destroy it from within, and I'm not okay with that. So we're trying to make a difference here. We really want to make this something, but I do want more parents involved because as we continue to grow, it's going to be a necessary thing, especially with these committees. The committees are there for people to join on something that they find interest in. Like I said, we cannot do it all. Like you cannot be on 5 different committees. That is spreading yourself thin. That's just not a good idea. Um, but
And we
connect with
will
me
be
there.
vetting you, please know. So if you're a
Yes, yeah,
troll or you're somebody that thinks that you can just trust me, we know.
yeah. I
We
mean,
know
we
how to
can.
spot you, but we do have a vetting process to make sure people are real and sincere and aren't rhinos, if
Correct.
you will.
We've gotta figure that out because we don't, like I said, we really want to keep this unique, and we have a goal in mind, and it's to protect our kids, and we don't need people in the way. Okay, I'm going to be honest. um so get in touch with me there. You can get in touch with Summer too if you prefer Twitter. Talk to Summer, let her know that you want to be involved. We are going to have another meeting in June, because we're trying to use the summer as a time to kind of gather our thoughts so we can get into the fall with some good ammo, in terms of like how we're going to approach this, how we're going to approach the school boards, maybe the PTAs, even the upcoming elections for 2023. I think there's so many things that we need to get involved in. Um, so yeah, that's it. And then you back. I know you gave me your email. I'm sorry, life has been crazy, but we will connect and we will. I'll get you at the next HISD board meeting. I'd love to have you there.
Absolutely. And we need to talk to her about getting on our call. Um, Again, if you are active on Twitter, most of you are in here because you know who I am. And again, I'm just doing this to help and to make this a better future for those that are going to be in charge of the nursing homes that one day we will be in. Hopefully not, but it may happen. So, it's just important that we raise our kids up right. And I get that not everybody agrees on everything, and that's okay. Like, I want to hear. In fact, I had a very long whatever with somebody today about guns. I totally get it. Respect his opinion. Doesn't change mine. But you know what? I'm still going to listen. And I think it's important. Every parent deserves to be heard. But I do think that there needs to be a majority. And I think that it also should not be correct. And I don't even think that the parents that are, talking out about other things are even being heard. I honestly, Jackie, Gabs, I don't think they care at all. I think there is a much bigger narrative. That's where my tinfoil hat comes on. But I think that there is money involved. These people are bought, they are paid for, and they've got this whole agenda lined up for years to come. So they don't care what you think or you think or you think or you think. They've got what they think and what they want to do. So That's why it's important that we unite and we blow the cap off of what they're trying to do. And the only way it's going to happen is if parents step out of a comfort zone. Yes, you're going to be called names. Get used to it. Find it as a, badge of honor. But yes, there's going to be some stuff that is said about you that isn't true and isn't nice. It is what it is. But you take it and you continue fighting for the most important thing that is right in front of you. And that is the future of this country and this world. And Brittany, I'm going to have her on because she's in McKinney, and there is McKinney. I actually live in McKinney. My zip code and my residence is McKinney, but I have Frisco schools. And I am telling you, like, I thought our school was bad with $58,000 for a sound system. McKinney just approved $700,000 for a sound system for McKinney Boyd High School, and they just approved to purchase 75 new school buses. I wonder why. So there's a lot of money. And again, where is that money being spent? How is it being spent? And who is it being spent on? And that is the most important thing, because I hate to know that right down the street from me, there are children that are going to school hungry. There are children that have absolutely no idea, like, what is going to happen when they go home. And yet we are wasting money. So I'm not going to get on that right now. But that is definitely a big thing for me in budgets. And I'm so sorry, where this money's going. So with that, if you girls want to say anything else, let me know. I'm going to mute myself for 2 seconds.
Got the COVID. I'm just kidding. No, thank you so
No,
much.
I ate a
Summer.
peanut and it went down the wrong way, of course.
I'm kidding. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. I'm
It's always
excited
the
to see where
Rona.
this goes. Yeah, it's always the Rona. Yeah, but that's like the running joke now.
I know.
Thank you. This is going to be great. I can't wait. And then we'll have to come back and do a follow-up to see where we're at. So
I know. Where are they now?
yeah.
I can't. But honestly, if you are on Twitter and you are an honest person, because you have to follow me first, and I don't follow a lot of people back anymore because I'm very careful nowadays. But I will make sure to get back with you, and most of the people I know, for those that really are in touch with me. But we do want to start rising up a group of people, and I do think it's important, Jackie, that we get either like a MailChimp thing going on, or even a blog just on Wix or something, where we can at least, post information for parents. And, even if our haters, the school board or the district want to know what we're doing good. We want them, at least in Frisco, we want them to know what we're doing, because we're okay with that. We want them to be afraid of us. And they are definitely scrambling right now. So anyways, with that said, Jackie, you're amazing. I love you. I'm so thankful to have met you. Gabs, so thankful that you came into to that space that one night and I got to speak with you. You are just an inspiration. Brittany, I'm so glad you're here. You're going to be up next. And here we go, ladies. I'm super excited. We are going to take back our schools and these kids. And one day we will look back when we are old and gray and say we did this, and we did it for them as they're taking care of us. So I'm probably a lot closer to those days than you guys, but it is what it is. So thank you for being here, Jay. Thank you for just being a co-host. You're just sitting there, poor guy. He's like these women. They'll just talk forever. Anyways, I don't know. I'm going to close this space only because my daughter's here. I'm going to hang out with her for a little bit, and then I'll probably get on later to find out what's gone on in the elections. But feel free to DM us. Pretty soon we'll have a website and some information for you. But in the meantime, be good to each other. Pray for this country. Pray for Texas right now. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Good night.